Hello, and welcome to Season 5 of the Your Neurodiverse Relationship podcast. I'm Jodi Carlton, your host, and I'm a neurodiverse relationship expert. But like so many of you, I've been on my own journey of discovering and understanding neurodiversity, both in my personal life with my family members and even myself, and professionally as a therapist and now relationship coach to people around the world. I'm often asked, can neurodiverse partner relationships actually work? And the answer is absolutely they can. Just like any relationship, there are core variables that influence whether or not you'll thrive as a couple. Neurodiverse relationships are no different, but they have the added layer of being neurodiverse, where one or both partners is neurodivergent. So this season, I've got a lineup of couples and partners who are in neurodiverse relationships that are working. They get real personal with me about the challenges they have faced and how they've overcome those challenges in their relationships. Let's get started. Today's episode is part 2 of my conversation with Laura Schreiner, who is a therapist who works a lot with neurodiverse couples, but she's also in her own neurodiverse marriage. And my conversation with Laura is, well, they're always good. And the first time she was on my podcast a few seasons ago has been one of the most popular episodes to date. So you definitely want to go back and listen to part 1 if you haven't already. And today is also another really great episode. You bring about a really important point that we don't talk about as much as we need to. And it's the children, because you have neurodivergent children. So do I. Most neurodiverse marriages, if they have children, they're going to have some neurodivergence there. Probably some parents or siblings. It's multi-generational because this thing's genetic. So that is a very important variable that you just mentioned. And especially when you've got one partner who is carrying a lot of the mental load, doing a lot of the executive functioning for the family, for the household. And the kids, I know my kids they will outsource to me in a heartbeat if I'm willing to think for them. And if I'm willing to think for them or even feel for them or figure out what they're feeling, and I think those boundaries are so important. Like what you said, when they come in, I'm in the middle of something. And, I talk a lot about boundaries and help people to understand that boundaries are not these ultimatums we give other people and say, you need to do this and you have to do this. It's more boundaries are for ourselves, of what I can make a request of you, but then I'm going to, this is what I'm going to do for me. This is what I need to do for me if you can't or won't honor that request. So when they come in from the game or whatever, and you're in the middle of something, that's a boundary you've learn to set with yourself of, I don't have to get up and attend to them right now. I can continue what I'm doing. And if they come and I give them I'm in the middle of some things and they don't listen because of their own executive dysfunction or lack of awareness, then I'll get up and move to another room and say, I'll be back in a minute. I'm not now.
Right. Let me finish. Give me 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the middle of the thing.
Yeah. Yes. I can so relate to that, Laura, myself. My office is at my home. I have a home office and I'm an empty nester now, but there was a long period of time where I was not. And it was hard to set those boundaries, learning to do that. That's that work you were talking about that we have to do for ourselves. And a lot of couples, like you said, or a lot of partners come to it as, oh, we've figured out there's neurodiversity. Autism's the problem. So go fix your autism and then we'll be fine. And that's just not how it works at all.
It's a big global, how are we all going to relate? How are we all going to get along? How are we going to understand each other's differences and allow for them and continually know that it's an evolution? I'm 7 years into this. It's still cooking. So my example far back about like where he thought we were in communication, I said, and I just gave him a general, like, are we in the low, like, if we were karate belts, are we black belt masters, or are we like in the middle? I don't know all the colors. Yeah. Or are we like the beginner, and I said in 2 contexts, in how you think you are to like me and how we think we are together. And I thought he would think that I would just lift him up a little since I did a lot of communicating for and with him in parallel with him. And he was like, no, I'm on the low end. And I was kind of surprised to hear that. Like, I think you're low on communication. I think it's a lot better than it used to be. Like the fact that you're even saying some of the things you normally would express an opinion about something, without fearing getting shot down or, that you're just speaking out, or how we mutually take, pauses from each other, or, we can say the words like, I am exhausted. Like we can both be arguing now and it can be like, you know what, I don't even know what we're arguing about. I'm flustered, he's long brain fried, I'm equally brain fried. It's not under or below me to say like I'm done right now. Like, how about you? Like, I'm sick of arguing. Like two old people, I'm sick of arguing. Let's go get something. Like it's not worth it anymore. It's not worth that the fight. When the fight's still in you, I feel like all of that is the resentment
Hmm.
and the stuff from the past that I am not saying doesn't matter, because yeah, I know, I know why. I don't want to look at those first 13 years. There were moments, great moments, but there was a lot of it I didn't understand. And
Yeah.
so, like, that's another piece of it. And it does need its own time and space, but
Hmm.
that's the individual work again. And then when it comes into couples, that's the work where it's like, forgive me, I did not know any better.
Yes. Yes. And this actually, so many of these themes, this is why this is going to be such a great series because, like I said, I was talking to Stephanie and Dan earlier. This exact thing came up, and so those things we can look back to an extent to get some clarity and get some insight, but we also have to. We're not going to ever be able to go back and just redo and resolve some of the things that happened, and we have to be careful about going back there because our memories were formed where we were then. And so our feelings about it and our triggers, when we go back there, that stuff comes up again. And we can go back and get that new narrative and update some of those memories. But then it's important to just leave stuff in the past and know that was then, this is now, and we're moving, we're living in the now.
Present.
And yeah, yeah. So what else is on your list there? I don't want to
Yeah.
bogart the
So
call here.
let's see, my statement that I like to start using, which I feel bridges the circuit of what to do with your feelings and emotions for everybody,
Mhm,
is like identifying I'm feeling blank, which
mhm.
I gotta tell you, as a therapist and even myself, I'm not terrific at
Yeah.
identifying it during the moment, right?
Mhm,
No,
mhm.
it's probably a combination of feelings. I'm feeling blank because I choose to believe blank. And
Oh,
that's
yeah,
at the end of
that's an
it.
important second part.
I choose to believe. So, example, I'm feeling, frustrated because I choose to believe, that he's not seeing my point of view right now.
Mhm,
Okay. But then start taking that down and start taking that apart. Okay. Why isn't I choose to believe he's not trying on perspectives right now? Why isn't he
mhm.
trying on perspectives right now? So you keep asking the why and the why. Well, why isn't he?
The
He's
layers of
probably
why. Mhm,
yeah, the layers of why, and you get there, and it doesn't necessarily take, the emotion down to negative, or,
mhm,
but you're just trying to dial it down a little bit.
mhm,
It gives you a
mhm,
little bit more clarity. And it's
mhm,
come to some big ahas for me where I'm like, I'm feeling, and this goes for positive feelings too. I'm feeling joy, because
mhm.
I choose to believe I am joy. Because, there's a lot of couples that are addicted to the stress piece of this,
Yes. Yes.
and addicted to the therapy piece of this.
Mhm, mhm.
We're just gonna slam it. Like, can you just like take a day off and flirt, do something different, change?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
your brain is used to those old patterns, like you just referred to a few minutes ago,
Yeah.
and so are the bodies. So then there's a somatic piece to the healing
Mhm.
progression to this all, and that is so identifying I'm feeling blank because I choose to believe blank is can be empowering. So that's
Yeah.
one. All right. The somatic piece is, it's like there's a lot of, and when you're in each other's presence and there's a tension, and
Yeah.
like, you can't even sit in the same room without, scratching on the glass type of thing.
Yeah.
Like that's the body. Like there's a lot of work you can do with like some breath work and being in each other's space, not even eye contact, but being in each other's space where you're in sync. There's, body movements and things you can do. I'm doing this was one of them. It was like a
The tapping. Mhm,
happening breath work, that kind of thing to get the body reprogrammed
mhm.
physiologically.
To help basically retrain the body to not go activate that central nervous system when you're in someone's presence, and to help the body learn how to do that and just be less reactive. I think
Right.
that, it's interesting. I had a couple that I was working with this week, and on the call, we worked through an interaction that they had had. where there was a pretty big misunderstanding, and it was just a pretty typical standard neurodiverse relationship misunderstanding where there was a lot of emotional reaction, or not reaction, but a strong emotional experience for one partner, and another part, the autistic partner, trying to be responsive but not knowing what to do and how. It was just a big misunderstanding. So we gained a lot of insight, but I noticed that the neurotypical partner, even though we were gaining insight, we were getting clarity, both partners were actually able to say, yes, okay, I see this, I see that. But then her body language was still very, okay, yes, I see what happened. And so I stopped and said, I said, I'm noticing there's a misalignment in the words you're saying and what your body's doing. What is that? And I think it kind of speaks to that, what you were just saying, that our patterns, we're used to being so bristled that even when the clarity came, her body was still all bristled and angry. And so, I think that's something to work on, that, as a coach, as someone on the outside, I could say, hey, I see, are you aware, what's happening
Yeah.
for you? Are your words actually, what are you, because what you're saying is not in alignment with what your body's doing. And that's some of that personal work, though, to do, just and I think that's just in general, the personal work is where it's at in any relationship, whether it's neurodiverse or not.
Let's just say the relationship's not going to work. You have to do that work yourself anyway to figure out what's wrong
Yes.
and how to proceed.
Yes, because you didn't just get here all by yourself. I mean, or you did get here all by yourself. You did get here all by yourself in this relationship. You chose this person. You showed up the way you show up, and it's not the autism or the neurodiversity that is causing you the problems. Now, might your problems have been a different kind of problems with somebody else? Yes, but you're still bringing you to it. And I'm asking almost everybody here, and your husband's not here to give his perspective, but I'm going to ask you, what are the things you see in other couples, and what did you and your husband do differently that made the difference? You're still married, even though it's difficult, it's hard. You're still married, you're still in it. You're both still there. What is that difference?
He's told me he's slowed down his thoughts when he realized he's in overwhelm. He doesn't know how he does it.
Okay.
He said, I don't know how it happens. I've somehow figured out a little bit that I have to slow down my thoughts.
Okay.
Enough. Cool. Thank you. And when I try to draw more on like how he self-soothes either in the moment or in general, he's also knows, and I remind him, and I think he needs to hear the words that, like, he may do some behaviors and he may say things that, aren't the best and are sometimes mean, but I still like love him as a whole. Like, I don't separate the behavior. I don't separate, the person in whole as a good person no matter what. And
Okay.
like having him buy into that.
Mm-hmm.
He matters no matter what. Like, you can screw up. We're all going, like, again, that whole leaning in thing. So he's leaning in and like realizing he knows he slows down his thoughts. He knows that he can say now, like, I don't understand. If like the auditory stuff, the whole, like, I can't even tell you in the last 7 years in steps how we receive each other's voice and pick up on words and things, where I can already sort of tell, like, you didn't just get what I just said. Like, I'm going to have to, like, let me clarify. And we do a lot of, what did you hear me say?
Mm-hmm.
What did you hear? What did you hear from this? And like, almost, not quite. And I don't have
Mm-hmm.
always time for that either, but like, I can say, the whole, trust me, like, I can't give you the thesis on why and how you need to do the thing, because he worries so much about, and this is another big piece, is that he worries so much about like being correct and doing the right thing to please me, which is really sweet, but also not waste his own time. Like, I see all of that, but I think he makes and be emotional a little bit and know that that's not 100% him. And that was a big gain for him.
So what I'm hearing you say is that both of you have made considerable efforts to understand more about yourselves and each other, and to understand what's, that doesn't necessarily mean the other will make sense to you, but at least understand that this, you are different. And
We can
it
agree to disagree.
yeah, yeah, we can agree to disagree and even agree to be different. There are a lot of differences in your speed, your strengths, your abilities, and that you both acknowledge that, which is huge. I think it's huge when both people acknowledge and don't try to say we need to be more like each other, but this is how we're
Mhm.
different and that's okay. What would you say to folks where one partner is working really hard and trying to gain those insights and the other is just not?
All you can do is work on you. Again, you can't force, you can't exert power. You're going to be climbing up a very tall wall by yourself and you're going to fall and then get more disappointed. So you can work on you. And I guess in working on yourself, you can try again, but there is a point of a threshold and like
Mhm.
respectfully so your own, like how much you're willing to work with. There's a
Yeah.
time where it's too, like, this is too much. And, I've had people reflect, like, I've spent 10, 20 years trying to do this. And it's like, yes, you have. Want to keep doing this or do you want a different life? And to allow them to give themselves the permission to do that is a big
Mhm.
concept. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, you can only work on you. And then I guess I'm trying to think of what I do with a lot of clients is try to empower them to differentiate that it is not them, it is the actions and reactions of the other person.
Mhm.
That you could fill yourself in with another body, an animal, something else, and there might be similar reactions. You can't control that other person or how they're thinking or how they're reacting. So when you sort of nurture that
Mhm.
concept and you nurture that they are worth much more than they
Mhm.
usually are feeling at the time, then that gives them sometimes enough oomph to make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it depersonalizes it some too, where it's not personal. It's not about you. The
Right.
the way another person responds, it's not always about you. Sometimes it is, but it's not always about you. Yeah, and going back to the messages that we get from society about relationships, about what a marriage is supposed to be, what a relationship is supposed to be, and I think the when you have a partner who isn't either willing or capable even of some of these insights or just not motivated to self-reflect, then like you said, it goes back to you've only got you and that doesn't mean giving up everything you always wanted, but it's also a matter of looking at, okay, what is all I've always wanted and where does that come from? And is that even realistic? Number one,
Yes.
could I get that with anybody? Because I have had people say, I'm ready to go find another, I want to go, and I'm like, hold on, when they're thinking, I want to go find another person to live my life with. I'm like, yeah, okay, hold on a second, because
Yeah.
before you do that, let's go through, what your expectations are and are they even realistic? Has society sold you a line? Has your religion sold you a line? And because a lot of times when we stop and look at what did I want? What did I expect? And where did that come from? And is it even realistic? It's not. And then we have to figure out, okay, well then what are my gotta haves and my deal breakers? And, is there enough here? Because a lot of people, when they look at their relationship, there are some really great things about the relationship, some really great things that are working well and lots of benefits to being in this marriage or this relationship. But that thorn is just really that thorn or that blister in the shoe is just really, really getting all of my attention. So much so that, it's like going on this beautiful vacation to, paradise, but you've got a rock in your shoe and you cannot see everything around you, the beauty around you, because that rock hurts really bad. So, sometimes it's a matter of stepping back and going, okay, is, is the rest of this worth it? Even with the rock in my shoe, because it's not coming out. It's going to be there.
How many relationships do you've worked with where the spouse is dependent on the other person's paycheck?
Right.
They've
Yeah.
been, parenting all their life and they've been doing sort of all the grunt work underneath, behind the curtain again, plus all the skills you have parenting, and
Mhm.
all that acquisition. And then at the end of the line, you're like, I can't do this anymore. Well, where does
Mhm.
that leave that person? So there's the like, should I stay or should I go? There's so many levels of that too. And there is something to be said. Again, I don't know if this is middle age shocking that when you're invested 10, 20, 30 years into a relationship, do you want to start over?
Yeah. Yeah.
do you really want to start over? Or like, can you be like frenzies and then build from there?
Hmm.
Or is it just going to look really different? And
Hmm.
I think back, like, I don't know why this is coming to my head, but like farmers and their wives, like in the old days, farming and like where like everyone had their role and you did your things, that's going to look different for every couple.
Hmm.
And I guess I know where I stand. Or I think I know where I stand with my spouse on like how roles are reversed in a lot of things in our lives and how like, well, you're better at talking to people, so that's on you. And I'm
Hmm.
gonna say like, I know, thank you. But
Hmm.
also like, can you call in our son today? Can like I know you got this too. Like, can you go out
Hmm.
of your box for like 30
Hmm.
seconds, do this for me and
Hmm.
ask and say it out loud. So if you're asking of your spouse and they're just not having it and they're just going to just refuse outright over and over and over again, hands in the air.
Hmm.
Like, like then guess what? I'm out.
Yeah. 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 And I
I feel
think
like we're
that,
contradicting ourselves here also because I feel like we're giving everybody the message of like, you could stay because you built up, all of this history with each other.
hmm,
But when I say it's like bad enough to go, there's
hmm,
certain deal breakers on like, yeah, you need to go.
yeah. No, I don't think it's a mixed message at all. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this series on can neurodiverse relationships work? Because in my own Facebook group, on my YouTube comments, I'm constantly seeing people say, run away, run away, run away. I'll never ever be again with another person who's autistic. They can't work. Don't do it. And first of all, that's my daughter they're talking about. And I do believe that she will have the capacity and have, I mean, she has really, healthy relationships with all of us. She's, not with a partner yet, but, and I also see it working with other people. And so I think the message is everybody's different, everybody's unique. And we all have to do our own individual work and we all have to figure out what are our expectations, what are our deal breakers, what do we absolutely have to have, and what have we convinced ourselves is what we're supposed to have, and is that realistic? And for some people, it's not as simple as just leaving. It's never just as simple as just leaving. I mean, nobody wants to leave, and starting over is not pretty. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm divorced and it's not pretty. And I'm divorced 8 years and I'm not remarried, and I've got a lot of I'm not so sure I'm ever gonna, but it's not because of autism. And honestly, I'd probably be the most comfortable with an autistic partner just because it's my whole world. Everybody in my world's autistic. I don't even know if I could relate to a neurotypical person. I don't know. But the thing is, the grass is not greener necessarily. However, we do need to know what those thresholds were. I definitely hit mine. I hit one where the relationship was destroying all of us, the whole family, him, me, my children. We were all experiencing trauma, and I had to figure out a way to leave. But not everybody needs to do that, and not everybody can. And there
Mhm.
are ways to have a fulfilling life
Mhm.
within, like you mentioned, the farmers in the olden days. I talk about that a lot. I've actually talked about that a lot because our concept of what a marriage should be has really changed in the last 100 years, really, because, you know, it used to just be kind of a partnership and everybody had their roles. And I'm not saying that, let's take women back to being, not having careers or anything. I'm not saying that, but it was very clear. And I don't think our great grandparents looked to each other to meet each other's emotional needs. I don't think that happened back then. And we had a community and a village, and it was just really different. So I think it's important that we just look at what we actually have, what we're bringing to it, what our partner's bringing to it. And as far as the relationships that work, even that is, how do you define that? Is there a definition for a marriage working?
And plus, an addendum to that, what is progress in a neurodiverse relationship? What is success in a neurodiverse
Yes.
relationship? Like,
Yes.
there is no test that you can, give anybody to check off the list. They're just
Yes. And is progress getting to the point where you're more like me? Or this relationship's more like I wanted it?
right, right. And yeah, and I can't straight out ask my partner today, like, what are your expectations of our marriage, sir? Please outline them in paragraph da 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 section this, whatever.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like, we're hanging out. I think I don't know. And I'm gonna go like, yeah, good enough. Good enough.
Yeah.
Well, good
Yeah.
enough. Good enough. Like I am more solid in myself now as a whole person that like gonna win some, gonna lose some with you, babe. I
Yeah.
think, and we don't have to agree on stuff. There's one point I wanted to talk about was the narrative of a lot of folks where they think their spouse has this narrative of them that's that's pretty rigid and blocked, which
Hmm.
sometimes it is. But if you would dive deeper into their brains and take a look further, there's more than that supports that rigid looking narrative that you don't know about. And that has to be teased out because, or that I guess is what I would do in therapy with them. And even my own spouse of like, tell me your deep dark secrets about me that like I got nothing. What you see is what you get. If I
Hmm.
don't understand and this is my personality though. If
Hmm.
I don't understand what you said or, what you're talking about, he was talking bits and bytes of computer stuff and he was trying to explain it to my daughter and I
Yeah.
to come up in a dinner conversation. I was like, not interested, also don't care, but also like don't compute. I don't follow. And so
Hmm.
I know that anytime I'm going to bring psychology, anything therapist-y, anything, this poor man has heard the word neurodiverse so many times. And, like, blessing and evil, right? That I can't, I can, the eyes are shutting,
It's not computing. Yeah.
not
I
having,
think that's such a
and I'm not
great,
going to force him to do that. I'm
yeah.
going
I
back
think
to your
that's,
football game right now, and I'm going to go back to when the day that I'm interested in bits and bytes is the day that you're going to be interested in, why people do this and why people behave the way they do on, just
human psychology and neurodiversity. That's such a great example because you're being very honest and authentic and saying, sometimes the stuff he talks about, I start glazing over myself. And I think a lot of neurotypical partners have that experience when it comes to the special interests. But that doesn't mean you don't love them any less. You just aren't interested in that. But a lot of neurotypicals then get really offended if they ask their partner, why do you love me? And the partner's like, I don't know. That's not a language that's spoken. And there's like a general knowing that they love you. But it's like with your husband being able to articulate that. And it's like looking at that fuzzy picture. It's like, I love you, but how do I say it? And I know I've been guilty of this before in my neurodiverse relationships before I knew about all this stuff. I remember asking one partner in particular, why do you love me? And he said, this was actually after my divorce. I dated an autistic man for a couple of years. He said, because you're willing to come to me. We lived about an hour away. And his answer for loving me was because you're willing to come here. And I'm like, but is there anything about my personality? And he's like, oh,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. But
yeah. It seems so shallow, right? That seems shallow to
But
you.
like you were saying, there's so much more there, but he couldn't necessarily articulate that. But
If you had
because
like all my cards, birthday cards and anniversary cards in the last 20 years, two sentences of scratched out stuff, like it takes him forever to do that. It's the effort,
that's the effort. Yeah.
effort, and it's still not going to be, it's gotten better. I'm going to say,
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah.
progress, gotten
Yeah.
better. And that's the expectation is the card. You have to write
Yeah.
something on there, or you have to say with words. And if it's too much, or the texts, or the emails, or however, don't care. Just get it to me. And
Yeah.
I don't. So I am taking my version of what I think he should be doing out of it.
Mm-hmm. 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 And instead receiving what he is doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And looking at that with that different lens of like, okay, that's what
Yeah.
you do right now.
That's what he can do. And that's what he is doing to
Mhm.
communicate to me that I'm important and that he values me. Yeah.
And
So
that's good enough.
yes, yeah, exactly. And that's good enough. That's key right there at the end. So Laura, anything else you want to add and share? I don't know if we got to all your lists, but it's always a good conversation wherever it goes.
Yeah, yeah. That hour has gone fast. Let's see. Yeah, we think we covered a lot of things. I'm trying to think of one more. Oh, I guess one last thing. I have my notes. Zero attachment to the outcome of the emotional response. That was a continual
Mm,
learned thing. And there's an addendum of yes, expectations and rules apply because we've learned to communicate like, okay, we're going to an event. First of all, I give them an out. If you're exhausted or whatever, there's no,
Mm-hmm.
you want to go, you don't go. It does not,
Mm-hmm.
I can go myself. And the zero attachment to outcome is kind of a stay in your lane thing, but we cannot predict what someone's going to feel, do, say.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you're aware of how you do that, when you do it, and how often you do it, if you start to dial that down and have like a neutrality of like,
Yeah.
did the thing, we did the event, and oh, pleasant surprise, it was really nice this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That goes way further than going in with all the worries and the like, "Nah, nah, nah," of what he's gonna do or what he's gonna say or what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna say to
Mm-hmm.
help
Mm-hmm.
him. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. You go with it.
I think that's kind of speaking to my codependency side of myself too. And I think of like gift giving. It's one of those things where, and we're not gifters in my family at all. So there used to be stress about that attachment to the emotional outcome, of giving a gift and it only really being okay if someone's like happy with it or, uh, you know, expresses emotional excitement about it or whatever. And then, but if they don't, then it's a botch, it's the same with anything really, you will do this for me, with me, and you will like it, or
Right.
it doesn't count. I think that is so important because I know as a codependent in recovery, that attachment to the outcome, the emotional outcome was huge for me because managing people's emotional reactions is what kept me safe. That was my safety preservation, having been raised by a narcissist, which is a whole other conversation. But so many people who are in marriages, neurodiverse marriages, have a lot of neurotypical partners have come from some kind of background like that. And I think a lot of people bring codependency into it. And it's one of the reasons why we picked who we picked, so that we can be that rescuer that we're kind of trained to be. I don't know if that aligns with you, but it does with me. And learning how to detach myself from the emotional outcome in all of my relationships has really helped me set my own boundaries for myself. That again, that inner work of, I'm going to show up authentically. I'm going to be a compassionate, kind person. I have expectations. That doesn't mean that they're always going to get met, but how somebody responds to me and my expectations is not representative of my value or even the quality of the relationship.
Right, right. And I'm my own observing witness to my thoughts.
Tell us what you mean by that.
I can I can recognize that I and observe as a witness of myself. It's like yourself watching yourself in the
Mhm.
situation,
Mhm.
and that is a skill that over time, we're like, what are my thoughts going into this?
Mm, mhm,
And
mhm,
then like as you're feeling, the majority of the time I'm decoding, my spouse is everybody's emotional, everything. As an empathic
mm,
person, I'm getting this feedback 24/7 bombardment on me.
mhm,
I
mhm,
have to like put all this up and go like, oh, no, it's not mine. But I observe myself feeling the emotion, I think. And it's like, wait a minute, this isn't like, why am I putting this on the person? Why am I putting that on him that he has to
mhm,
enjoy this, that he has to anything? I
mhm,
can
mhm.
ask him for a rating at the end of the night, like, what'd you think of this show? 7 out of 10? Yeah. And I'll be like, yeah, I was like 6 out of 10. Okay. Back to like neutrality of like, okay,
Yeah.
you don't like hot dogs. I do. Okay. Like just
Yeah.
sort of almost like what I really like about some autistic like answers of like you like it or you don't, like just
Yeah, sometimes
okay.
sometimes it is okay to be black and white, and or like if did you like this show? Oh, it was a 10 for me. Oh, I didn't really like it. And now we don't have to go we can just leave it at that. We don't have to
Yeah,
be like, "Oh my gosh, but why didn't you like it?"
right, right. I thought you would have liked it, but I guess you don't. Okay, we still like chicken. We have something in common.
We still like chicken. I like that. I like that.
Small,
That's
but
great.
we still like chicken. So it's okay. I'm gonna find, when you are so like we have nothing in common. We still
Yeah.
like chicken. We still like our shows.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't
I
go
think
wrong.
that's great. So was there anything else that your husband asked you to share that we haven't addressed?
He just says opposites attract is not precise. He said, we are instead complementary. We are puzzle pieces fitting together.
Yeah, it's interesting. That exact point has come up with Dan and Stephanie. Complementary puzzle pieces where we each have important perspectives and skills and thoughts and abilities. And instead of seeing ourselves as opposite, like, and on the other side of the boxing ring,
Mhm.
instead we're actually in it together, and we put our strengths together to make a stronger bond. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, let's end on that because that's a very, very positive place
Yeah.
to end.
Yeah. I was really excited when you said that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Smile.
that's great. And that was
Right.
coming from him. Coming from
Yeah.
him.
He's right. He's right. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
Well, Laura, thanks again so much. It's always, always, always a pleasure to talk to you. And I look forward to you being on the panel as well. So that's going to be a really cool conversation, I think. So, yeah.
Forward to it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. And I hope you have a great week.
Thanks. You too. Take care.
That's a wrap for today's episode. Be sure to subscribe or follow the podcast so you won't miss any of these amazing interviews. And as always, if you're benefiting and enjoying this podcast, please give us a review. It really helps other people know that this podcast is really beneficial and worth listening to. Thanks for watching on YouTube or tuning in to your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to visit me online at jodicarlton.com for more resources. I have assessment quizzes, educational articles, courses, and more. And if you have any questions, just reach out to my team at gethelp@jodicarlton.com. Until next time.